Welcome. You're tuned into Life is a Sacred Journey. Every week, we bring a new perspective to aging and caregiving. Here is your host, Micheal Pope.
Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are in the virtual neighborhood of Life is a Sacred Journey. It is Friday morning already. I have had a very busy week. I have been participating this year, or starting last year into this year, in a wonderful, wonderful learning called Creating a Culture of Renewal. And I finished my first year, and I have one more deliverable to put in and upload, and I will receive my first year certificate. So I am so excited. And I want to do a shout out to my buddy during that period of time, Alejandro, who walked with me. We had buddies, and he was my buddy, and we did homework together, and it was just amazing. And then also to my mentor, Rebecca Simon Peter, who was there when I thought that I couldn't do it, when I wanted to give up, because there's so much going on in my life, whether it be here at ASEB or just not bad stuff, just stuff that took time away. So I want to thank Fall 2022 Track 1 cohorts for allowing me to learn with you and to be with you. And if you're interested in creating a culture of renewal wherever you are, whether it would be in a nonprofit or in a church setting, get in contact with me, send me a note, drop me a note, and I'll tell you how you can get involved. It is an amazing program. Okay. Let's get started this morning. So I'm feeling invigorated. I've got allergies, so excuse me. Oh, one other thing. Please lift up Nancy Redding, who joins us here at Life is a Sacred Journey. She has lost a friend, a dear friend, over the last week. And I know that she's going through a lot right now. So just keep her in your thoughts, your prayers, your meditations, because Nancy is a part of the Sacred Journey family, and we want her always to know that we love her. And since we know these things, we will pay attention and lift her up, just to bring peace and a little less loss in this season of her life. So thank you for that. So my guest today is Marika Humphreys, and as I begin to talk about her, I'm going to bring her in. Please hit the share button and let other people know that we are online and that we have started this morning. It's really important to us. So Marika Humphreys is a life coach who was a caregiver. I mean, it's amazing to me how many people I have met who have been caregiving, which also goes back to what I've said back in the past, is that we all become caregivers at some point in our lives. I think that the word caregiving has been used just to describe it for individuals as we get older. But I think throughout our lives, if we really think back, we've been caregiving for a really long time. You know, I know my first dog that got sick, and I was a child, and I loved that dog, and I laid by that dog day and night, praying that it would stay alive, hoping that my presence would give it the will to live. I was caregiving. You know, so we build upon our caregiving tools as we grow up. But as an adult, when someone we love gets sick, when someone we love gets disabled, when someone we love needs a little bit more from us than what we ever thought that we would give, it's called caregiving. It's called caregiving because they can't support us in that activity. Marika Humphreys is a person that has gone through this experience, but then, you know that old thing, turning lemons into lemonade. It transformed her in a way that she wants to share now as a life coach with all of you out there. And I know there's a lot of caregivers that follow Life is a Sacred Journey. And I will tell you, and she will tell you later on, you go to her website, you have an opportunity to work with her one-on-one, but she also has a free mini course that you can get involved in. So it is my honor and my privilege. And you know how we are here at Life is a Sacred Journey. Everybody becomes the family member of our life, because I think that if we thought of each other as human siblings, we might not crash into each other so abruptly and so cruelly. We might be more forgiving. So join me in saying good morning to Marika Humphreys. Good morning, Marika. Good morning, and welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey.
Good morning, Micheal, and happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is a wonderful season in my life. I'm in my 60s. I can't believe I am. It happened like that, but it is a wonderful season, and it is a season of embracing some of the things that you're talking about, and we're going to talk about today: resiliency, overcoming things, and looking, not always saying don't look at it from the negative, but looking at the negative and pulling the good out of it. Those kinds of things. So thank you for the belated birthday, and good morning to you, Kitty. You're one of my people too. I love kitty tails.
This is my cat. I will show her face. This is Cinnamon.
Hi, Cinnamon.
People that I do weekly live videos, similar, not podcasts, but weekly live videos, and most people just see the tail. So my teen always says, you should get a cat cam, Mom, and just have, a camera on Cinnamon's face, because her tail is famous.
Her tail is famous. Well, we end, and you'll if you've watched us, we end by always saying, go pet a cat, pet a dog, hug a tree, because I know that petting and grabbing that tail, that's what I remember when I had a cat, just taking the tail and rubbing it was so sensitive. It's like the old blanket when you're sucking your thumb and you're So
yes.
Thank you, Cinnamon, for joining us this morning. You are welcome here, so you keep that tail moving for us. So Marika, I want to first of all, again, say thank you, good morning, and welcome to Life is a Sacred Journey. But you fell, or, for many people, it says they feel like they're falling over a cliff. And it starts with a diagnosis, or it starts with an accident, or it starts with something to the person that we love or that we're connected to. So would you tell us a little bit of that story and how you got to this place where you're sharing this incredible and beautiful story and wisdom with others?
Yeah, I was 40 when actually I wasn't quite 40. And my husband and I, we had a 5-year-old at the time. Our kid was 5, and he had been having some like shoulder problems. At least that's what we thought it was, shoulder problems. And he'd been getting physical therapy. And I remember I had gone on a work trip to the East Coast. I was working full time for the Air Force, actually. Oh. And when I came back, he picked me up from the airport. It was summer. It was hot, because actually this is Northern California. I'm now in Washington State, but I used to live a little bit north of where you are. And as we were driving home, he said, there's something I need to tell you. And I just remember, the tone of his voice was clearly serious. And I remember thinking, you've had an affair, which is so, I don't know why that came to me. I think that was probably like the worst thing I could think of.
Yeah.
And because we had a great marriage. Like, there was not any, we hadn't been having marriage problems, or there was really no reason that in particular would come to my mind. But that's what I remember thinking. And what he told me was, they found a cancerous tumor in my arm. And I just remember being, we were in the car. I just remember being in shock, and because it was so out of the blue. Neither of us had any cancer in our families. And really that shock lasted for probably the next week. And I remember going to his first oncologist appointment in the town we were living, and seeing Cancer Center on the wall. And that's sort of when it was like, that was realities just sunk in, how did this become our lives? Yeah. So basically, to speed up the story, it was totally out of the blue. He was a little bit older than me, but so I was 39, he was 44, I guess, at the time.
Mhm.
And that it turns your life upside down. And that can be, I mean, for us, it was cancer, but it can be all sorts of things. Like you mentioned, an accident. I recently learned about Lyme disease, which is a whole crazy thing. Like there can be all sorts of diagnoses that turn our life upside down. And essentially, he got through that first year. We both had the attitude like we're just going to get through this. It was a tumor in his arm. He ended up going through rounds of chemo that were pretty awful. Ended up having surgery. They were able to remove it, and he was able to keep his arm, and it's amazing what they can do. But he did lose some mobility with it. They had to replace a bone, and we kind of, went through that year. He lost all his hair, and he was really bloated from the chemo. He was super nauseous. It was a pretty awful year, but we both kind of had this mentality that we're just going to get through this and kind of go back to our lives. And, which is essentially what we did. And then a couple years later, his cancer came back, and it came back in the form of a brain tumor. And that was another crazy time. Like he started becoming really disoriented, and like he was the stay-at-home parent. I was the working parent. We're very kind of non-traditional there. And I remember him calling me at work and saying, I don't know how to get to school. Like he'd driven our kid to school, and it wasn't a complicated route, but hundreds of times. And I remember thinking he's having a nervous breakdown. Like that was my thought, which again seems silly because we had this cancer history, but it's just not what it just was not what I was thinking. He was thinking. He kind of lived with cancer like always that whole time. I think I was able to mentally move on. Anyway, we found out he had a brain tumor. He ended up getting medevaced down to UC San Francisco. Surgery again was like he thought he was going to die. The prospect of brain surgery just scared the crap out of us, and
all of us, right?
And then we talked to the neurosurgeon, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I do this pretty much every other day," and we're like, "What?" Which was very reassuring, by the way. Yes. Because you're like, okay, like, yes, you're operating my brain, but this is what they do. Yes. And that surgery was also successful. But we found out while he was in the hospital that they did some scans, and his cancer from his arm had come back and spread to his chest. So he basically had two different types of cancer. The tumor in his brain was a different type of the tumor the cancer that he had before. So that for both of us was sort of like, it's almost like round two. We knew more what this was like battling cancer. And that's where we both really took a different approach in multiple ways. We took a different approach in treatment, but we also took a different approach in how we addressed it emotionally. And that's when we both actually found coaching. Actually, my husband found it, and we both we ended up, hiring a coach for the both of us, and it was life-changing. I mean, it was literally life-changing, even though his health, had some ups and downs, and he ended up passing away from cancer. But what we learned and the tools we learned really helped us feel back in control, because we were focused. We learned how to see what we had control over and what we didn't.
Yes.
And obviously that was different for each of us. But it was just, like in that time, I actually got a promotion at work. Like I went from feeling so much like a victim of his cancer, like we were both just cancer was in charge,
right?
Realizing, okay, there are still things in our lives that we do have control over. And that was life-changing. So, after he passed away, we had actually planned to coach together. So we had gone to coaching certification and training, and we were going to coach together couples, where one of the person had cancer. And, I was going to coach the spouse, he was going to coach the person with cancer. And that was kind of our plan. And after he passed away, about a year later, I really, had a lot of grief to work through. But I had, as many people do, this really profound sense that, life can be short. And while that's always true, it's very up close and personal when you go through someone like that and losing your husband. And so I decided that if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it now. So that's when I literally kind of, I took 6 months, gave my work a 6-month notice, and quit my job and started coaching full time. Wow. And haven't looked back. I mean, I love what I do now so much. And yeah, so I,
it's so amazing though, because what's the calendar time on that period of the whole?
So it was 5 years from his initial diagnosis to when he passed away was about 5 years. And then I opened my, kind of started coaching full time about a year and a half later after he passed away. So about 6.5 years between from beginning to when I became a coach full time or when I changed careers.
So folks, what that's the other thing, Marika, that we talk about is that time, right? That time is this thing that we all measure. We use it to measure. We use it to say, okay, 4 years of college. Everything is measured in spaces of time. But when you're caregiving, time just seems to just build and go. And did you have that moment where you thought, oh my gosh, all this has been going on for a long time?
Yes. And I'm glad what you said in the beginning about, we're all caregivers. That term, I really never thought of myself as a caregiver. And I've actually recently heard the term care partner.
Yeah, that's what I like that one too. Yeah.
I like that too. And I think that was more for, especially when it's your spouse or a partner, that's probably more accurate.
Yeah.
But, there were periods like for a good year or two, it felt like life was normal. So there was ups and downs. And I will say that that what you're talking about, like, holy cow, this is going on for a long time, really kind of happened for me in kind of, when his cancer came back and we were in the throes of treatments and figuring out what to do. And it was that's when I started to feel very burnout. I started to feel kind of resentful. I was resentful of cancer. I was resentful of my husband for having it. Yes. And then I felt guilt for that, which, I remember profoundly the moment I had the realization that, okay, my suffering is also important. Because to that point, I had really been diminishing my own kind of struggle because I didn't have cancer, which makes sense, right? I mean, like, yes, he's battling for his life and I'm just feeling burnout and resentful and, I have the daily struggles. But when I thought that way and I felt like, okay, well, my needs aren't really important, I was not, I wasn't essentially taking care of my own emotional needs.
Yes.
And I really had to shift. I had to make a mental shift that my needs were also important.
Yep.
In order to, and that was really when we got much more, we had been listening to this coaching podcast, but we got much more involved and started getting help, like coaching ourselves. That was a huge shift for me. I mean, it was a real mental kind of realization. I remember because my kid was in the, a summer swim team. And I think I was talking to my mom on the phone, it was a swim practice or something, and talking on the phone and just realizing I I'm struggling here. And that I think is really hard for the care partner in that situation, is to, it's like the title of, Life is a Sacred Journey. Our own each of us are on our own journey, and we cannot do it for our partner. Like, we can't live their journey for them, and we can't ignore our own journey. And that was a transformational mental shift for me that I feel now very strongly about, because I know it's easy when someone is going through a major life challenge like cancer or an illness or a disability. It's kind of easy to get wrapped up in their problems and their challenges and their pain. And you have to be very conscious of finding that, of reminding yourself that it's still their journey.
Yep.
You can support, but you still have to live your own life, and that's, I think it's just hard. And that the emotions that come up, again, like resentment, which is something, I felt terrible for feeling that way. Right. It's not like it was his fault,
Yeah.
It's, but those are real emotions that people feel. And I think those are really good warning signs too, that if you're feeling that way, doesn't mean anything's gone wrong. It just means you need to pay attention to yourself. It's kind of like you got to get back and check with, okay, what do I need? And I had, been taking care of myself physically. Like, that was something that I always prioritized, but it was really the emotional support that I had really kind of ignored for my own self.
Mm-hmm. And I think what we all do is we begin to feel guilty for those emotions and those feelings of, this is tiring, this is hard, I wish this hadn't happened. Or, like when my dad had Parkinson's, I was so upset with him for a long time, in my head, not in his, because I was just starting to come out of a whole series of junk and just starting to be who I thought I wanted to be. And then he wasn't going to be there to see it. And he played such a pivotal role in it that I was angry. I was like, wait a minute, dude, I'm doing this for you too, so why aren't you gonna? And I realized that was natural, and I needed to do that in order to move to the next place, where it was, oh, wow, what a gift he has given me. Oh, I can live the rest of my life with my dad, not physically in this plane. Yes, I can, because he lives in me. But it took me a moment to get to there. And I think we have to give ourselves permission to live through these moments, and emotional resilience and emotional intelligence and all of those things begin to take a role in that, where you begin to say, you know what, Micheal, it's okay. You love him. You love him with all your heart, but right now, you're being individualist at the moment, and I am pissed that he's not going to be able to dance with me at my son's wedding, or whatever the thing that was going through my mind. And so, in your coaching, are you feeling like you really are just giving a lot of permission to people to live who they authentically are?
Yes. Giving permission, I definitely feel like, is what I do a lot. And, when you said that, how angry you felt, I just got chills, because that there's so much grief that we go through. And for you, it was like your dad couldn't play a part in this new life you had just kind of started to. So, and for me, it was, the plans, like all the things we used to dream about. And just in an instant, now we just talk about cancer and treatments. And like, there's so much grief and anger at the loss of the future that you thought you were going to have. And just, you have to go through that. Like you said, you cannot if you try to stuff it down, you will stay stuck in it.
Yes.
And I think, and that's the true for really all of the emotions.
Yes.
But it's so giving permission to feel that, express it, and you have to work through it, and that is a lot of what I do, especially initially when I coach my clients, is just like you have to bring that stuff to the surface, because a lot of times it's in the back of their mind, or they don't want to bring it up, or they feel ashamed or guilty, and you have to bring it to the surface. I like to say it's like if you just shove it in that closet you have in your house, where you just kind of put everything, close the door, but every time you walk by that closet, it bothers you, it weighs on you, because it's full of stuff, you need to deal with it, you don't have the energy and time.
That's right.
And that, I think, is what happens, is we just build up all these thoughts and worries and emotions, and you have to take them out of the closet and just kind of deal with them. And when by looking at them and just working through them, it allows you to, find acceptance,
Yes.
really let it go, I think, is what happens for me a lot. I had a lot of anger after, like about a year after my husband passed away, just at life. Like, I just was angry, which was a very uncomfortable place for me to be, because I'd never thought of myself as an angry person.
Okay, gotcha.
And, the coach that I went to at the time, she's like, just let yourself be angry. And honestly, that was the entire solution. Like, I just stopped arguing with it and not wanting to be angry. And I'm just like, okay, I'm going to be angry. Mm-hmm. And then it just passed, and I don't honestly remember how long that took, but I think that is more what happens than not, is when you allow yourself to feel those emotions and ideally look at them, maybe, I give my clients some, ways to work through them, then they pass. Emotions, they all have a beginning and an end.
Yes.
And when we stay stuck in them is when we try to hold them back. Yeah. And that's our biggest misconception. I think I had one client recently who came to me, and she had so much fear. Her husband was terminal, and she just had been trying to stay strong and not let her guard down. And the fear was just building up, almost like a tidal wave. And I just kind of think of it like, you're just trying to hold you've got cardboard, blocker against this tidal wave. Mm-hmm. Because she felt like if she let down her guard, she would just be overcome and drowned in that emotion. Yeah. And I feel like that's our biggest misconception, is emotions do have beginnings and they do end. Even grief, all of it, they cycle through. But when we try to hold them back or deny them or ignore them, that is when we stay stuck in them. And that is a hard thing, because it feels very scary at the time. But yes, giving my clients permission is a huge part of it, Yeah. And to your point, to live your authentic life, when they do that, they're better. They show up for their partner better.
Yes.
That's, I think, the other thing that we also don't see right away, is that when you are, still pursuing your dreams, and maybe you've altered things, but you're still moving forward in your own life, you're able to show up, with love and patience and empathy, because you aren't depleted, because you're still doing what you need to do to live your own life. And when we don't do those things, that's when we get resentful and burn out and exhausted, and our patience is none, and we don't have the love to give, so that's the other thing that just kind of a lot of times just takes reminding, hey, by you continuing to live your life, and yes, it's not like you're not ignoring them, but you do have to find that balance. You're actually going to be better. You're going to like who you are better as a caregiver.
Yeah. And also your whole existence, you'll be able to, going forward, it changes the way you look at not only your own self, but other moments where you are kind of knocked off your axis. You have tools then that help you, and remind you. I think it's like in our DNA. Once we learn something, and then when it happens again, we start on the road of no consciousness, and then all of a sudden we go, wait a minute, I'm familiar with this feeling. I know what to do. I can handle this. I'm going to live in this moment, or sometimes just stop. I've had to do that where I just stop and live in the moment, embrace the moment without doing all this analyzing of it, because it is a moment, and then just keep going. And it doesn't mean don't experience it. It means stop and experience it and let other things kind of wait. Because I do think we live in a world where people say, hurry up, get over your grief, hurry up, get over your joy, because hurry up. We need you to get through this, because we are a world that needs strong people and people that, and that's a bunch of BS, folks. I'm here to tell you that really is. Marika is our life coach, and she probably won't say it that way, but that's a bunch of BS. That is not, that's why we are all dealing with such anxiety and stress and mental health stuff, because we have this idea of perfection that's not real. It's not real. It really is a movie or a television sitcom, and it's not real. So how has the societal shift of perfection and getting over things, because we definitely live in that time, affected people that you're working with or that you have worked with?
I also call myself a recovering perfectionist, because that tendency played a lot into my struggle. And I do see that show up for a lot of my clients, not all of them. But So when you talked about there's external pressure, and certainly in our Western, American culture, we have this expectation that we should be performing, we should be producing. But we also put that expectation on ourselves, which is, I think, what I did more. I don't think I had as much. I actually had a wonderfully supportive work environment. I mean, I'm just really thankful I had a great boss at the time. All of those people were super supportive, but I put a lot of pressure on myself, especially in the beginning too, I should just be able to handle this, I should just be able to handle it all. And we tend to underestimate the mental, the emotional, and the physical toll that going through a major life challenge has on us. Just literally yesterday, one of my clients, her husband recently passed away, also very young, and she's gone back to work. But her it's literally been like a couple months, and her expectation of herself is I should have my shit together and be kind of producing at, pre death level, and while she knows intellectually that's not realistic, she's still putting that pressure on herself. And it's really, so I think that's a subtle thing too. We talked about it. I mean, there is, you have to really work to give yourself grace. That's what I tell people a lot now. Give your partner grace and give yourself a lot of grace, because this does take caregiving and grief and loss. All of it takes energy, and it's not, it is an extra thing in our lives. Most of us don't come with these kind of skills to handle it. And you're going to maybe show up in ways that you're not always proud of, or lose your temper, or just not, be operating at 100%. And in the past, I would really judge myself for that and kind of demand perfection, and I should be on top of it. And now I'm so much better at just okay, this is where we are, and just, I got to be in it. Yesterday is a perfect example. I was actually thinking I didn't sleep well for some reason. And now that I work for myself, which is a beautiful thing, and I work from home, I'm you know what? I'm going to take a nap.
Yes.
And I did 40 minutes, and I felt so much better, and I was so much more productive. But yeah. I will tell you, to get to that place of allowing myself to take a nap and then actually be more productive. In the past, I would have just eaten, drank a lot more coffee, and pushed myself through, and then had all these, felt bad about it all. So that's kind of, I feel like that's a really good example of like just accepting this is where I am, and I can try to argue with it and think I need to be more effective right now, or I need to be able to, be on, like one of my clients, she was feeling like she wasn't on her A game at work, and her husband his cancer had come back. And, making peace with that is a huge part of it. It's like, yeah, you're not going to be on your A game, and it's okay. Finding that acceptance yourself. And I think, like you said, you've learned to just like, okay, stop. I don't have to try to analyze, control, figure it all out. I'm just gonna, this is where we are.
Yes.
I'm gonna be here for a minute.
Yes. Yes. It reminds me of a baby, where when a baby is beginning to walk and it's holding on to the side of a table or something. And then when it realizes, what, this really is all I can do, it sits.
Yeah.
And I just think that is so special, because it's like, I tried it. It's not working. I'm just going to sit. But you know what? Yay. I made it that far. So there's a celebration, there's acceptance, and then something happened. There still was movement. So, I love that. When I thought of that one day watching a child at a store, and in a Starbucks actually, and it was walking and it sat right on the floor, and the mother picked it up because of course the floor is yucky. But at the end of the day, that is exactly it. It's like, I'm done, I'm sitting, or I'm done and I need to cry.
Yeah.
I tell folks all the time, Marika, that the shower is my favorite place to cry. One, as a mommy, I was trying not to, whatever on my kids, right?
I know.
But in the shower, it always felt so cleansing. And then I read something one day where it said, when you're crying and the shower, and it's a cleansing of the body, but the tears are the cleansing of the soul. And I thought, that I had done that subconsciously, but allow yourself that. And Marika is going to tell you in a minute how to get in contact with her. But the other thing I'm going to say to folks, and Marika, you can tell me if I'm wrong, and I would appreciate and honor that. I think we apologize too much for our tears.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I have really, through this process, because I was an analyst. I mean, that was my job. Okay. And I still that is still a strength of mine that helps in coaching a lot. But I have really learned so much about emotions, and that what I wanted to say, I love I have this beautiful image of the baby, especially walking in Starbucks. Care that the floor is dirty. I'm just done. And you know what else the baby's not doing? Judging itself. Right. It's not having any sort of internal dialogue about, dang it, I should have made one more step, and man, I need to get stronger, and gosh, I got to get my act together. Baby has none of that. It's so pure in that sense. Before we add on this whole internal judgment, and we do that with our emotions, and I have really, I feel so differently about emotions now. And I always tell people that, emotions just they aren't good or bad. And learning, one of the things I do in my program is we delve into what emotions are, how they feel in our body, how you can just observe them. And yes, we give them names, anger, fear, guilt, shame, even the terror, like shame or embarrassment. Some of these emotions that feel terrible still are simply neither good nor bad. They just are. They're just part of the human experience, and which means that there's no apology to be made. But we do that because as a society, we're still very uncomfortable with seeing people express emotions. And and that shows up a lot of times when people are like, oh, it's okay. We teach our kids like, oh, it's okay. You know, as I was younger, I think the solution for everything was just go have some ice cream. You know? And while that does work pretty well, it really doesn't have the best, outcome long term.
Exactly.
So, I think we're uncomfortable with emotions, and especially when people are grieving, people just are uncomfortable. So I do spend also a lot of time saying, like, teaching my clients to be okay with their own emotions. And for the ones that have gone through loss, like, let others, know that others are going to be uncomfortable with your emotions, and that's okay. It's just because they just don't understand it, and so they're going to want to try and fix you is what they're going to do. It's okay, do this, you'll feel better, don't cry, all of these things, which are not helpful, really. We need to just be in it. We need to get it out and then move on,
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And embrace it for what it is. I mourned the passing of my dog for a long time. And somebody said to me, well, just go get another dog. It's like, well, you don't quite understand, do you?
Yes.
And this dog was more than just a pet to me in many ways, because when I had cancer, and was on my bed after chemo, and not chemo, but the pills and all the things that they were giving me, because I was only stage 2, but still, the dog was there. The kids were still out doing sports, doing I tried to make sure their lives were normalized, but the dog was there.
Yeah.
And so the connection that I had to this dog was beyond just our walks and all of that. It was something that laid with me, that when I was throwing up in the toilet, it sat right there and looked at me like, okay, mommy, what you doing? And then licked my face. So when the person said to me, just go get another dog, they had no understanding about what they had just said to me. Yeah. And I realized when I stood there in the middle of the street and I was crying, he didn't know what to do with that. And he's my neighbor, and he finally said to me, did I say something? I said, you kind of sort of did, but it's kind of not your fault. And it's not your fault. I said, but what you need to understand is sometimes telling someone just to go replace what they lost is not what they need to hear when they're in the moment.
Yeah.
And he recently got a new dog himself. His dog passed away. And he said to me, I got it. Because we were out doing our gardening stuff, and we were doing the old neighbor thing, leaning over the fence and talking. And he said, I finally got it, Micheal. He said, I replaced my dog because my dog passed away. And the connection I have with my dogs are different than the connection that you had with yours. And I was like, wow. And I was like, yay, neighbor, you did that all on your own. Yay. But again, that's what Marika is talking about. Sometimes we cannot do these things on our own. Sometimes having someone, a life coach, I've told you, I have a counselor, I have a life coach, I have a mentor, I have a daughter. I have another dog. So I've got 5 entities that I talk to and that I share my deepest emotions and feelings with, and friends, of course. But what Marika does is help you to, and I know this because I can feel it and I see it all in her website, is to explore where it's all coming from, to explore, and then you become the captain of your journey, right? And then you get these tools that, like I say, in that DNA where something's happening and you go, ooh, wait a minute, I can soothe myself.
Yeah.
I can calm myself. I don't need, even though Ubu ice cream is so delicious right about this season. But anyway, but you can do it with restraint, and it's not your go-to. Because again, we know that emotional addictions happen because those things become our go-to instead of us experiencing the emotion. So, Marika, tell people how to get a hold of you, and you do this online, or so people
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I work entirely virtually. So I have clients. I had a client in the UK actually not long ago. So I work with clients all over the world, which is a beautiful thing, actually. And yes, my website is the best place to get a hold of me.
Okay.
It's coachmarika.com. And on there, you can, set up just a consultation, and essentially we'll just talk about what you're struggling with and how I might be able to help. But I've also got quite a large number of blog articles that I've written over the years, really dealing with I focus a lot on the partnership, when you're caring for a partner, because that's what I'm most familiar with. And yeah, and then as you mentioned, there's a free course on there as well too, just some tools to cope when you're caregiving.
So please go to the website. And I love, I wrote this down because it was on Marika's website, and you are stronger than you think.
Yeah.
You are stronger than you think, and the people around you are stronger than you think.
Yes. I love that you added that.
Right?
I love that. Believing that, if you're caring for someone else, believing that they are stronger than they may feel in the moment is probably one of the best gifts you can give them.
Yeah.
And as well as with yourself. And it's so true. It's so true.
So get on the website, check it out. And I'm not going to say if you need help, because that's not what this is all about. It's about realizing how sacred your journey is, being able to live it to the best of your ability, and bringing in the resources. It's like a recipe. That's what it is. It's like a recipe. You can't make macaroni and cheese if you just have macaroni.
Exactly. Good point.
I wish you could, but you can't. Okay. You're missing another key ingredient. And there's a lot of other ingredients that go into it that are not in the title of what it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Marika Humphreys is there to help you. Marika Humphreys is there to support you and to help you re-envision. There you go. To vision your mission, your focus, your tagline, because when you have that all kind of in your focus, you live a much better existence. It doesn't mean that you won't, because I just did that recently. I had a moment, okay? But I have the resiliency now to know that I had that moment. I know what I needed to do in that moment, go to Bodega Bay and walk the beach. And then I was like,
yeah.
Right? And do you ever tell people just to breathe?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
And that's something I do myself a lot more now, actually, is breathing. And, it just, I like also doing like the body check and just closing your eyes and just, what are you feeling? Which is essentially getting present with yourself for just like 30 seconds even can make a big difference.
Make a big difference. Marika Humphreys is our new best friend here at the Life is a Sacred Journey family. We keep adding all these new people to our family circle, and Marika Humphreys is one of them now. Please go to her website and check it out. Not if you think I don't need it, somebody needs it. And the gift we give each other is experience. So I share my experiences with you, the books that I read, the places that I go, and I'm giving that to you as a gift. I don't want to just keep it to myself because it either brought me joy, pain, or an aha, pondering. So I share it as a gift to you. So go and check out the website. You've heard the podcast this morning. You've heard Marika. You've seen her. You've fallen in love with her. Tell somebody else, even if you think you don't need it, right? And put it somewhere. Because the thing that I've learned is that I didn't think I needed my counselor. And I needed her, and then I didn't need her. And then if I had lost her phone number, I couldn't have gone back. And I call her every once in a blue moon and go, I think I need to come in and talk to you. She goes, no, you just want to lay on the couch. I'm like that too. I love her couch. She's got one of those thingies. I love it. I'm like, yeah, that too. But again, and don't make it be like it's a dumb, droll thing. It's your self-help. If you go to the doctor for what's going on inside, go to a life coach, find a counselor that can go to what's going on inside. Okay? Because it's not anybody's fault. It's just the way it is. So Marika Humphreys, your last word to us is what?
Love is more powerful than you think. I think sometimes as caregivers, we want to do something. We want to fix it, or somehow like we need to take action. And a lot of times just loving the person, sometimes that can just be sitting next to them, holding their hand, thinking about sending them love. I do that now with my husband. When I think of him, I just send him love. That is incredibly powerful. And that's something that I learned in this process, is that don't underestimate the power of love. Like, you don't always have to do stuff. We're very action-oriented, society. And sometimes it's just love. Yeah. Love is incredibly powerful. So that's my parting words of wisdom.
We love you for that. Because I always say, if we want to change the world, we just need to go out and love. We need to be loving everybody, even the person who grunts at you, and you need to just still look at them and say, good morning, I love you, and keep it moving. Just move really fast so that they'll be in a state of shock. They'll be like, what did that woman just say to me? Okay, love is the key.
I love that. That's
Marika,
awesome.
hold on for a second. Okay, we're getting ready to let you go for the weekend. You know what I always say to you, go out, find a cat, find a cinnamon tail, hug a tree, and pet a dog. All those things are really cool for your well-being, and breathe. But if you are out there in this moment, another thing we always say, if you are feeling sad, if you are feeling so overwhelmed by grief, anxiety, and pain, please text 988 or call 988. That is the suicide hotline. There are people on the other end that will listen to you, that will help you to get through that moment. I want you to know, and I always say this to you, and somebody just recently wrote me and said, but you don't know me, and how would my taking my life impact you? I'm going to tell you how. Because every human being living on the planet affects the life of the other human being that they don't even know. It's as simple as that. And I feel that if I tell you that I love you and that I give you that 988 number, that maybe, just maybe, and I pray that you will have gone and made that call, taken that move. That's it. That's it. And my goal in life is to help people whom I don't see. So if I don't see you ever, if telling you about the suicide hotline helps to save your life, then I know that I've done a good thing this day. So have a good weekend. Get outside, enjoy the sun, enjoy the fresh air on your face. But more, as Marika said, go out and share some love. Go out and share some love. Smile at somebody. Smile, people, smile. Your teeth, even if you're missing a tooth, smile. Who cares? Just smile. It's all good. All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. And we thank you here at Life is a Sacred Journey. We thank our guest this morning, Marika Humphreys, for her sharing her heart, her life story with us. And have a great weekend. Peace out.